I have entitled today's devotion, Giving Our Best, or perhaps better subtitled, How God Measures Success. I listened intently as a pastor friend of mine presented a devotion at the Monday morning pastor's prayer fellowship I attend. He shared his thoughts on how God measures success. In his presentation, he talked about his wife, who is attending night classes at a local university. She's taken a very heavy academic load, works a job, is a full-time mother, and is also a pastor's wife. He said that because of their hectic schedules, sometimes she calls when she leaves college, and he and their 2 boys meet her at a restaurant that stays open until midnight so they can spend some quality time together. Due to the lateness of the hour, often he and his family are the only customers in the restaurant. He noticed that even on the nights when he and his family are the only customers in the restaurant, when their drinks are served, they are served fresh. When their food is served, it is cooked to order and served promptly, and the waitress is attentive to their needs. Successful businesses and successful churches understand that when it comes to their clients, the needs of the one are just as important as the needs of the many. If we cannot or are unwilling to meet the needs of the one successfully, how can God trust us to meet the needs of the many? Seeing as he was speaking to a bunch of pastors, my friend went on to scold us for sitting in our pulpits on Sunday, observing who isn't there, and then failing to present the best we have to offer to the ones who are there, because we're upset about who isn't in attendance. I thought, ooh, that hurts. That's truth, and it hurts. The measure of success for an organization or an individual, whether religious or non-religious, is not how many people we serve, but instead whether we are serving the very best that we have to offer to those who are there. When I was serving as an associational missionary, I recall my wife and I making a random visit one Sunday night to one of my churches. We were there to worship with them. While making his opening remarks, the pastor stated, "If I had have known Aaron McCollough was going to be here, I would have brought my best sermon." I cringed. I whispered to my wife, does he realize that he just told his congregation that they were not worthy or deserving of his best? I remember a story I heard years ago about a lady who was teaching a discipleship class in a large inner-city church. The class was for unmarried, pregnant teenage girls. It was held every Tuesday night. One Tuesday, the teacher had an absolutely horrible day at work and had considered counseling the class. However, after careful consideration, she decided to proceed with the class. She was late leaving work, and when she finally made it outside the high-rise office building where she worked, she discovered the weather matched the day she had endured inside. Horrible. It was cold, raining, and she had forgotten her umbrella. Consequently, when she arrived at the church, she was late, cold, soaked to the bone, and very frustrated. When she arrived at the classroom, she was disheartened to discover that only one of the girls had shown up for the class. Before she thought about what she was saying, she blurted out, "Well, considering the awful day I've had, if I had known you were going to be the only one to show up, I would have canceled the class." A tear began to roll down the young girl's cheek. She looked at the teacher and said, "Why, aren't I important?" Ooh. These stories should serve as a poignant reminder that the quality of what we do for Jesus is far more important than the quantity of people we serve. We tend to forget that God never called us to be successful, at least not by human standards. Instead, he called us to be obedient. With this in mind, it's safe to say that the pastor serving a congregation of 10 to 15 people on the backside of No Hope, Georgia, where God has called him, is just as successful as the pastor of the big megachurch in Big City, Georgia. The Sunday school teacher who faithfully ministers to 1, 2, or 3 people each week, because that is where God called and placed them, is just as successful as the teacher who has a class of 200. The music minister or worship leader who faithfully leads a choir of 8 people singing to a congregation of 6 people, because that's where God has called and placed him, is just as successful and meaningful as the music minister who is leading a choir of 200 who sing to a congregation of 1,000. The measure of success is not the numbers, but obediently presenting the very best we have to offer wherever God places us. The Bible leaves no doubt that Jesus ministered to great crowds. On one occasion, he fed 4,000 people, and on another 5,000. Many times he was thrown by the crowds who wanted to see him. There's no argument. He did minister to the crowds. However, the focus of his ministry wasn't the crowds. The focus of his ministry was the 12 and every individual he encountered along his life path. He poured the essence of who he was into them. He realized that when the qualities he modeled were successfully duplicated in the lives of the few, the inner circle, then the ministry to the masses would be automatic. Was his strategy successful? Well, you tell me. He poured himself into the 12, and even one of them was a devil. However, after his death, 11 ordinary men began to flesh out the qualities he had taught them. They were so successful that their teachings forever divided history into BC and AD. 2,000 years after his death, his story is still being told. Why? Because he realized the importance of giving the best he had to offer to individuals, small groups, and yes, even the masses. Jesus was not successful because he ministered effectively to the masses, but rather because he ministered successfully to the few, the individuals, the inner circle. The question that begs an answer today is this: are we giving our very best that we have to offer? Are we meeting the needs of the 1 or the 2 or perhaps the 3 individuals God has placed in our paths? Or are we only seeking the glory and fame that comes by ministering to the masses? When the woman at the well, blind Bartimaeus, Zacchaeus, the woman taken in adultery, Nicodemus, the thief on the cross, and other individuals in the Bible came to Jesus in their hour of need, didn't they deserve the best he had to offer? What kind of Savior would Jesus be if he only met the needs of the many and ignored the needs of the few or the 1? Sinners can only be converted when one by one they come to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ and enter into a personal relation with him. There is no cookie-cutter approach. Churches are built one relationship at a time. There are no shortcuts. And as we seek to win a lost and dying world to Jesus, let us never lose sight of the fact that somewhere in this world right now, somebody or some family sits in life's cafe hungry, needing our attention. The only thing that will satisfy them is the product we're serving. They will not measure the success of our product by how well we served it to the masses. They will measure us by how well we served it to them. Our product? Oh, that's Jesus Christ. And hey, there are no cookie cutters or shortcuts. He can only be served to others as we serve others, even the 1. Lord, would you please burn into the minds and hearts of everyone listening to this devotion today, Lord, that we need to give our best. And that is how you measure success with us, Lord, by whether we're giving our best, serving to the best of our capability, wherever that may be. God, please speak to people today. And I ask this in your name. Amen.